Honorable Minister Hasib Drabuji, Dr. Gokarna, Professor Standing, and Renana Ben. It's my honor and privilege to welcome all of you to this National Conference of Basic Income on behalf of India Network for Basic Income and Seva Bharat. For us and for the journey of Indian basic income debate, this is an extraordinary moment. Because 7 years ago when we started this talking about basic income and started our pilot, it was a kind of we were met with ridicule and laughter, and basic income was, an unconditional basic income was not something that people digested. It was a dialogue of death. But today, 7 years down the road, we see that we have arrived at a conversation much beyond our expectations. And we see that today, many brilliant minds are at work comprehending this, the enormity of this idea, and actually applying themselves to the numbers and also operationalizing this policy option, which is now considered a policy option. So this idea of unconditional and universal basic income actually compels us to review our existing welfare regime, not just in India, but also across the globe. We find civic groups, governments, a variety of agencies actually forcing a scrutiny of the current welfare regimes. So this process of scrutiny, which is very essential in our country, actually opens up an opportunity for all of us to revive and renew our welfare system, welfare regime. So the purpose of this conference, which is for us who have been working on this, a dream come true, the purpose of this conference is to take this conversation forward and strengthen the conversation, and also take the idea to many more spaces than just a few spaces of the think tanks. So that is the purpose of this conference, and we are very grateful to the speakers who have agreed and accepted our invitation. And I thank all of you for accepting our invitation and coming to this conference, and I urge you to actively participate and push this conversation towards a process of renewal. Thank you very much.
I think I would like to also start by thanking INBI on behalf of Seva Bharat, thanking INBI for doing most of the organizing of the conference. And I'd like to thank IDRC, who is here present today for sponsoring the conference. And also, I'd sincerely like to thank our speakers for having come here today. I would like to speak on behalf of Seva, and as many of you know, Seva is an organization of women in the informal economy, that is, women at the base of the pyramid. We have been organizing for the last 40 years, and every generation who joins Seva, faces a new set of issues, a new macro environment, and Seva has to continuously reinvent itself to understand what is best for its members, who at this stage are about 2 million. Here I represent Seva Bharat, which is the federation of all the Sevas. And Seva Bharat has taken the lead in trying to find new forms of social security, and in particular, the social security that is afforded by cash or by money in the hand. We know, and I'm now talking about an experience of decades, that government provides many, many different schemes, all of which are aimed towards reaching the vulnerable, reaching the poor, and changing poverty. As we also know, and we'll keep hearing, that there are over 900 schemes now for this purpose. In Seva, what we see is that the new ideas and needs emerge from the people themselves. And if one is listening carefully, then one hears what it is that they require. And therefore, Seva often does small researches, small experiments and pilots to find out what it is that we should be advocating. We have a very complex social system. There are many leakages. And from people's point of view, often the rules are such that they see it as rules to prevent them from getting something. And in Seva, we have spent a lot of energy mobilizing to demand what is actually an entitlement. So thinking about, is there an alternative where people just get what has been entitled to them as a matter of right? So because of that, we ran 3 pilots, which you'll be hearing more about, 1 in Delhi and 2 in Madhya Pradesh, where we gave small amounts of cash, regular, unconditional, small amounts. And what we did find, I must say I was quite skeptical in the beginning, is this going to work? Such a small amount, will it help? But we found that it did make a big difference. And the difference was due to the fact that there were no conditions. So they did not have to get a certificate from this one and an okay from that one. And secondly, there was a matter of choice. So cash today, we are a cash economy. As we saw when there was demonetization, we realized we are really a cash economy. And having cash in the hand allows people to make a choice of what it is they need to better themselves. As Sarat said, we started 7 years ago thinking about this. And today, because it has come in the economic survey, therefore, it has now become a matter of public debate. And that is why we are having this conference, so that we can forward this conversation. Now, unfortunately, what we have seen in the last 7 years since we started is that the conversation on cash transfers, it used to be called cash transfers, it moved to be called DBTs, direct benefit transfers, because cash transfer sounds like you're handing out cash. And now we're moving to basic income. But the debate around this has been split into 2 parts, a sort of conversation of the deaf. One part is about people who openly say that we care about the poor, and who feel that giving them cash means government is washing its hands of all its responsibilities and handing everything over to the private sector. They also feel that this is a ruse, a excuse to close down schemes and not give people things. And we must admit that there are a lot of vested interests in today's schemes who do not want those schemes to be closed down for reasons altogether different. And then there's the other side of the debate, which says that the methods of social security are cumbersome. There are a lot of vested interests, and that just directly giving what is due would be far more effective. There are also those people who believe that actually one should not be giving social security and people should learn to stand on their own feet. So these are sort of 2 people talking in different directions. What we would like to do is make a real conversation I want to say that this conference is not about let's do basic income tomorrow. It's about let's have a conversation on how can we think about basic income, where, how much. And I think that is what we would like to promote through this. I'd like to say another thing, which is that this conversation is necessary, and the conversation needs to lead to action. Unfortunately, in our system, when somebody in power has a good idea, they think it's a good idea and wish to impose it. So we're really good at drawing up ideal schemes, but not so good at implementation. And you can't really blame implementation. You can't really say this is an ideal scheme and this is a bad implementation. The scheme and the implementation really need to go together. But when you get this kind of difference, then often with the best of intentions, it really begins to victimize the most vulnerable. And the aim and goal of what we are saying for basic income is that first and foremost, it must reach all those for whom it is intended. It must help the most vulnerable. That's a big test. Is it reaching the poorest? Is it reaching the most vulnerable? That is the test of everything. Often when these schemes are implemented, the ostensible reason is the sort of main objective tends to be, although that's not written in the scheme, is let's weed out fraud rather than let's reach to the most vulnerable. And just a small example that I came across recently, which I think Sita is going to speak about, is that we work also in Punjab and in Chandigarh, and with the best of intentions, the numbers of people who were earlier, 80,000 people were earlier receiving benefits, has suddenly come down to 20,000 people because of a change of scheme, because of the way the application process is set up. And who are the people, who are those 60,000 people? They are not people who were fraudulent. I personally met a number of them. One was a widow with 4 children who had to work all day, did not have time, energy, or mental space to try and get applications. So I think this is something we need to, any change of scheme, we need to protect the vulnerable, we need to reach the vulnerable. Finally, what we are saying, and this is another misapprehension about or miscommunication about basic income. It's not that shut everything down and just give people cash. That's not what it's about. This basic income is only one tool in the government's armory. There are services. Without good health services, education services, infrastructure of all types, including right down to the toilet, the basic income is not going to succeed. So the question is, a very controversial point, there is this thing about PDS versus cash. Now, if PDS, that is not what we are saying here. Basic income is not about shutting down PDS and let's start cash. So I think there are many 900 schemes. What continues? What doesn't continue? Do you need to add more money? How much more money? Can we afford it? These are the conversations. How much should the basic income be? These are the conversations that we need to be having. Again, I think that we are not advocating an immediate large-scale implementation. What is very, very important is we are a very diverse country. We have rich states, rich people in rich states, poor people in rich people in poor states. We have all kinds of conditions. We have different governments implementing, state governments having different governance systems. So immediate implementation of large-scale implementation is not wise at this point. What we hope would come out a little bit more is having larger scale pilots. We've only done 3. I think some people have done a few others, very small. We need larger scale well-documented pilots before we can go forward. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for being here, and I do hope this will open the door to more conversations and more action on the ground in the area of basic income. Thank you all very much.